Hi, so we're on to the second stage of the painting. And first of all, I would like to introduce the most distant layer of mountain. So I'm going to draw in with my Posca pen the outline of the most distant mountain and the one that is slightly closer. It will all make sense, but this is the first stage. So I want to take this mountain here right down and then go up and down. So we have two layers right here. Okay, next thing I have is a tiny bit of white and a tiny bit of purple. But as you can see, there's more white than purple. Now I'm going to take my rough brush, which I mix with. Just take the brush, take the white, and I want to mix the white and the purple together to create a light purple, or mauve as we call it, or violet. Now that's not light enough because, as you can see, it's more or less the same as the background colour, so I want to make it slightly lighter, so more white. Okay, so yeah, that's pretty much. It's so pigmented. I want to try it. Yes, that's lighter. So as you can see, I'm creating a lighter background. There. It's just abstract shapes at the moment. Abstract shapes. This is just the background. We'll be putting the figures in once we've established the background that we like. And that takes a little while. So I'm going to fill in this background here. I've taken a smaller brush now because I want to get more detailed. I want to fill in the mountain in the background with a smaller brush, and I like to make it quite flat. Still using the paler purple. Okay, so I've laid down the background, the most distant mountain, and there's a bit here that needs to be filled in again. So I need to, this is darker, so I'm going to get some of the darker purple, mix it in with the lighter purple, and just bring this forward, fill in that shape that's been, and I'm using the smaller brush. Washing them out in the water as I go. I actually want to just put a little bit more down in the foreground, and my eye tells me that I want to bring this up here just feel that that composition works better when that shape, that mountain, goes up rather than down. Follow your own intuition and your own eye as well as mine, as you know best what you feel will work. Okay, so this is the basic background. Now I want to think about where my light source is going to come from, and I will all be made clear. So I feel that my light source will come from here, this side. So I'm going to get a round object, and it is a cup. And I'm going to place it where I want my light source. Yes, it's going to go over slightly wet paint at the moment. This disc is a sort of either a sun or a moon. I've got my white Posca pen. I'm going to draw around my cup. You can hear the wind outside. It's winter in England. The wind is blowing. Okay, so you can see that light source, sun or moon, I'm not quite sure. I always like this ambiguous sort of feeling of not quite knowing what time of day it is. It can be interpreted as a moon or a sun. Obviously the sky is quite light. It could be dusk, it could be night, it could be, obviously this is a full moon, so now find a nice brush and fill in that disc with white. I use a lot of white as a flat shape, and sometimes I add glazes and over the white, and white is the best colour from which to work, but with glazes over. But all will be revealed. So yes, I'm still filling in this white for the moon or the sun. Just laying it down really flat. Just keep working on it until you feel happy with its flatness and its clarity. There, I'm going to turn it round and show you there. Nice, so far, very abstracted landscape. Don't worry if the paper or the acrylic paper looks a little wobbly while it's wet. That happens. It will flatten out after it's dry. So put your brushes in the water just to keep them wet, and go and take a few moments to wash your brushes, keep them clean, because they tend to hold paint. Even if you put them in the water, they tend to hold paint. And also to keep them in the water for a long time isn't a good idea, because they lose their shape and they lose their point. So I like to take regular breaks to wash my brushes, maybe have a cup of tea, allow my painting layer to dry. At the moment it's pretty wet, so what I'm going to do to expedite the drying process is I'd go and get a hairdryer and I dry my painting just to get to the next stage more quickly. And I'm going to make a cup of tea and wash my brushes. So I've got my cup of tea and I'm going to get started on the next bit. So what I like to do now is I take a cup upside down and lean my canvas on the cup just to give it a nice angle to work from. Now I've decided that my light source obviously is coming from this angle. So if we're painting something like mountains, albeit they are abstracted mountains, I still like to think about them having a light source and showing three-dimensionality of some kind. So I've got a dry brush. I haven't got any water on this brush, just white. And what I like to do is get a rag or a piece of kitchen towel and just get the excess off. And as you can see, I'm going to softly, 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 with the driest of brushes and the smallest, the softest brushwork possible, just. And I think that this brush is actually too soft. So I'm going to look for a more bristly brush, and this is more bristly, but keep it dry. And this mountain is going to be reflecting the light from over here. So let's just make the mountain reflect the moonlight. Here. And you can make the mountain have a lot more shape. It doesn't have to be just round. I'm going to make the mountain have some shape to it. So this is still a dry brush. That's a little bit too much white, obviously. So I'm going to knock that back a bit with a glaze in a little bit. You'll see what I mean. Don't worry. I've got a little bit more purple back on the brush, so that I'm going to take that white out a bit. Put more white back on the brush. Bring that back up to the moon. Take that behind. Now I'm going to make another shape, a ridge if you like. 3-dimensional, make the mountain a little bit more 3-dimensional. There we go, bring that down. Just keep working into it. Keep the brush dry, because it's like moulding, it's like drawing with paint rather than, it's almost like sculpting with paint. So keeping the brush dry. And if you can get one of these very bristly brushes, it really helps. A small, medium, bristly brush. Go and try out in an art shop different types of brushes before you buy them. These bristly brushes are very good for laying down backgrounds. They're not good for fine detail, but they're so good for sort of moulding and sculpting with paint, because you can really push down hard and you don't have to worry too much about whether you're spoiling the brush, because in fact they're already a little bit spoiled anyway, and this is what their purpose. So it's forming, the mountains are forming a nice 3-dimensionality and reflecting the moon. I'm going to put a bit more white up there by the moon, because obviously that would be the lightest place, where the moon is sort of setting behind the mountain. Just touch that edge there. You can probably hear the sound of rain outside my window. Takes the brush down. Always keeping the brush dry. Do not put any water on it for this. There, I don't want to overdo it, so I might. The key is to know sometimes when to stop, when you think you don't want to overwork things, to keep them nice and fresh, and I'm quite happy with that. So I'm going to just add a little bit to this plane here, but I'm going to do something entirely different with that, as you will see. I'm going to make that into an abstract mountain with flowers, but I do have this feeling that I want to just add this highlight here. And here, to bring it down. Keeping the brush dry, only adding the tiniest bit, and just dab, 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 dab to just make sure there's not too much. Even take your kitchen towel. It's just the slightest amount of paint on the brush. Slightest amount of paint. If you feel like you've gone wrong in any way, shape or form, you've added too much and you can't get rid of it, just go back and take the paint out, the white out, and put the purple back on. Go and get a hairdryer, brush it, dry it again, and start this stage again. It's a learning curve. I've been painting for so long that, I mean, I make mistakes a lot. I do things that I don't like, and I take them out. I take mistakes out all the time, paint over them. That's what the process is all about. It's all about evaluating, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't. It's not about getting it right the first time. That's not what painting's about. It's about, that's too much, you see, that's too much white. So I'm going to take that out with the purple. Because the light source is coming from here, you don't have much light on this side of the mountain. And then I'm going to put a bit more white up here. A bit more white up here. Up, 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 up. There we go. And then a bit more purple. Take it out a bit. More white. Bring it down. I'm not adding too much detail to these mountains because you will see why. Okay, so that's my initial stage of the purple mountains. Okay, so now I have dried my mountains with the hairdryer, so they're now ready for the next stage. I want to show you a painting from which I'm trying to achieve a similar result. This is a painting I have done, I did a couple of months ago, entitled The Scarlet Halo. And there's a story behind it. And of course, there's a story behind all my paintings. They're kind of pretty much all autobiographical in some way. And that was a story, that's a painting kind of about me. It's not me exactly, but you know, all artists paint themselves in one way or another. And it tells a story about me and an experience I had in Spain, hence the guitar, and this sort of mountain, which is quite Spanish in feel, and the red sun, orange sun, and a woman holding a flower with a lot of symbolism there. And she's got a halo, but it's scarlet. She's not a perfect woman. She's actually thinking all kinds of wonderful, delicious thoughts. Anyway, this one is, as you can see, has a mountain shape behind it. So we're going to do this shape, put in the whole shape here with the stencil. But I'm going to leave this one like it is, as it is. Okay, so I've decided to use this stencil because I love the retro feeling it has. It's a real 60s feeling, and I think I'm going to start putting in the stencil this way. It feels right. I want to show you how to use stencils. You need a brush, of course, a dry brush. Some people use sponges, but I prefer to use the good old dry brush again. Now I'm going to get my white, a little bit of white. Always get through so much white. In fact, I need to order some more. Now get the pen, brush. I'm always substituting the word brush for pen for some reason. And get rid of a lot of the excess. So you have that amount. Now you hold the stencil down. Don't stick it down. You just hold it in place and dab. And it has to be a dry brush. Don't use too much water because it will run. And you dab and you dab and you dab and you dab and you dab. And refill the brush, but don't get too much paint on the brush. So dab, 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 dab until it's, and I'm going to do it as quickly as possible. Hold it down. My wrists are cold, so I've cut these socks, the ends of old socks, and put these wrist warmers on, and they make so much difference. It's wonderful. So dabbing it on. With white, because we're going to change the colour, but white is the first colour you need, because overglazing over white is the only way. I mean, you can overglaze over other colours, and you would think that you might want to use the first colour, but it won't work on a dark colour. The first colour I'm thinking I might change this to is a sort of pinkish red, but first of all you absolutely need to put white. Use your stencil with white. And when it's dry, then we will overglaze with the colour. All will be revealed. And then we're almost there. And that's pretty much done. So then take a corner, lift it off, there you go. And then do it again. until the whole surface is covered in this wonderful stencil design. So move it around until it's, and then start again. I'm going to put that in the water for now. And so I have covered the first mountain with a layer of flat white stencil all over. As you can see, some of it's going over the outline of the mountain. So I'm going to take a brush, get a bit of water and go in the purple, the darker purple, but make sure there's enough water on the brush this time, not necessarily too dry. And I want to create a feeling of depth behind the mountain there. So I'm going to shade this with the darker watered down purple, just to create a feeling of depth between the two planes. And then the other side. I don't want to bring it up to the top because there is already plenty of light hitting that top bit. I just want this bit because it goes down and it creates a feeling of depth and shade with the darker glaze of purple. I have not taken the stencil down to the bottom of the page because there is a reason. You will see I have a plan for that bit. There's going to be another layer here using decoupage paper. I want to say at this stage that I always used to be a purist, and I always used to paint my patterns by hand. I still do a lot of hand painted pattern, but as I was painting so many pictures and buying and selling quite a few, I needed a new method, and I like the mechanical look of this. Actually, I quite like it because it's nice juxtaposed with the hand painted trees that I do. And I will be doing a hand painted tree in this image, as you know, because you will have seen the final product before you start. Now the next thing I need to do is, this is nice and dry. I've already dried it with a hairdryer, so that you can touch it, there's absolutely doesn't move. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to get some crimson here, and I'm going to turn my palette around to a bit where there's no paint. And here we go. Just put some crimson on and really, really just get a lot of water. A lot of water in with that. We don't need any fancy glazing agents at this point. Now I'm just going to layer that on, but really so you can see the purple coming through. You can see the purple coming through, but not too much on your brush. The key is just minimal amounts of paint quite a lot of the time. Just subtlety. There we go. All over this layer. To the top. You can take it down to the bottom if you like, it's up to you. Although that will be gone, obliterated by a wonderful piece of paper that I'm going to cut into another mountain plane shape. And You can always see the stencil shade coming through. And then put a bit more crimson, pink, crimson over that. There we go, a bit more. You can allow that to dry, and if you feel it needs more red or crimson, go ahead and put another layer, it might need it. I'm going to do that already because I feel it does. I want this painting, this layer to be quite a nice deep crimson. The name of this colour is actually called Process Magenta by Winsor & Newton. Okay, so have a good look at it, see if there's anything that needs adding. Put the brush in the water, turn it like that. I see my moon has been splashed. So take a piece of kitchen towel and just dab it, and there you go. That's your first layer with the stencil and the red. So that's our lesson for today.